now? Okay. Well, afternoon or whenever you guys listen to this, I'm Omar as always, and joining me is Marshall for the podcast. When we know it's 100 of podcasts. We've been out for a couple weeks now, just certain things, such as me being back in my barracks room at West Point, and Marshall. I think he was a college graduate when we last recorded, but I guess just give us an update about what's going on, Marshall.
Oh, sure. So I started work this week, so that's been a pain. No, it's fine. It's fine. But been busy with that, so hopefully we can get back to this a little bit more regularly now.
Yeah, hopefully. Marshall's gonna be a big Wall Street guy. Just with the money, he can give us some money inside in the future. But so for a topic today, I'm not sure if people are aware of this recent news of the Western Athletic Conference coming back as a football conference, but at the FCS level. But they have all intention to go to the FBS level. And with that, they poached 4 Texas schools from the Southland Conference, who right now is reeling with only 9 members total, 7 football playing members in the conference, as well as another school, Central Arkansas, left for the Atlantic Sun. And with that comes a proposition that we've thought of for UTEP to join the Southland in all sports other than football and then go independent. So, Marshall, I want to hear your initial thoughts on this first.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it a little bit. I think geographically it kind of makes sense. From like a monetary standpoint, I'm not exactly sure the breakdown between the ASun versus any other conference, or like at the FCS level. I imagine it must be less than FBS, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Definitely. There are some conferences that have their own TV contract. Of course, actually all do have like some sort of TV partner, but it's less lucrative for sure, as those are on like the paywall, such as ESPN Plus or just online exclusives.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, if it's that big of a money issue, there's not, in my opinion, there's not much of a difference between the prestige of like one versus the other, I guess. And so you might as well stay where the money is. Also, I guess in terms of competitiveness, obviously I guess not everyone, but people in FCS would like to move to FBS, and FBS is more competitive. There's more opportunities to get your name out there better, which will lead to, better recruiting, lead to better resources for your program, all of the above. And so, it probably just makes sense to not move down, in my opinion. I don't know if you have a different stance on that.
Yeah, so keep in mind football would be still like at the FBS level independent, but other sports were moving to the Southland, which is a bit of a drop now in terms of basketball. As Stephen F. Austin, who most people know beat Duke at Cameron Indoor Stadium last year, and is really adding the basketball pedigree of the WAC. So it's a step down basketball. To be honest, like basketball in Conference USA hasn't been all that great since or not Marshall, but Marshall's still there. Memphis, Cincinnati, since like all those schools left. And I know I'm sort of dating it a little bit back, but Conference USA basketball isn't the sort of like consistent multi-bid it used to be as it was years before.
Yeah, so I guess, is there any advantage to really stepping down, going FCS?
I think, not FCS, like they'd be FBS independent still. But it's the whole scheduling thing, like basketball and like whatnot would be in like the Southland, which is more geographically beneficial because like you're making regular trips to say like Birmingham, UAB, and Southern Mississippi, and the occasional trips all the way up to Virginia. And that's got to take its toll on the travel budget of UTEP.
Sure. Okay, I guess that kind of makes sense.
But the one thing is, yeah, it's like that drop in like prestige, like for basketball and whatnot for like the Southland. But I just don't know if there's that much of a drop. And there's always like the revenue thing. But Conference USA has been reeling in the revenue department for years now. I guess like the past like 7 years or so. And I guess
at least I like upside wise, I feel like Conference USA has much better upside now.
I guess. There's a lot of people this offseason after seeing what happened in the bowl season after Conference USA went 0-6 in bowl season, and with Marshall having their losing 3 straight after starting off 7-0. Like people are saying that Conference USA is ages behind the Sun Belt now, and you look at the years that the Sun Belt had this year. Like you have Louisiana, doing great out in the Sun Belt. Yeah, Coastal Carolina on the rise, App State's a consistent team there. Those are all like recent additions, except for Louisiana. All recent additions for Conference USA got teams like FIU, Old Dominion, teams that are like in markets but are really struggling to come up.
Okay.
So I say this like in terms of revenue, that could be like one thing that someone looks to for revenue, as the Conference USA TV deal distributes 400K for each school every year. I mean, that's only up from 200,000
Jeez.
contract. Yeah, and some of the TV partners aren't really like beneficial. Like you have NFL Network. I mean, that's a good partner, but I mean, how like great of a partner that is. I mean, distribution wise, you have CBS primary, not even paired with ESPN. Not even paired with ESPN at all. And you have like Stadium recently started to distribute their games on regional sports networks now. So that's not even really a national TV partner. So I mean, for me, I think if UTEP were to go independent, like strike their own deal with like ESPN Plus, like Liberty were to, like the I just don't think. I mean, there might be a bit of a drop revenue wise, but exposure wise, I don't really see much of a drop.
No, I guess that makes sense. And so, gosh, I just completely lost my thought. I guess at the end of the day, though, that revenue, I guess, is probably, they're both, one way or the other. Really, it's pretty much non-existent compared to, as that hater in the comments pointed out last week, to what they get in the Big 12. What was that person's name? I want to give that person a shout out real quick. Do you remember their name?
Well, let me find it really quick. I don't know if doxing people.
Hey, it's not doxing. I mean, I don't know nothing about them. They just comment on the video. They got to throw a little bit of hate out there. Like, I'll admit they had some valid points, but at the same time, the delivery. If that person's listening right now, I want you to know I love you.
All love. Peace.
Kill them with kindness. You know what? Kill them with kindness.
But yeah, like I mean, on that point, like you look at this, I compiled a list of UTEP's national TV appearances since 2016, and 2016 being the starting point where TV partners such as Fox, I mean, that's when Fox left totally, like Fox Sports 1 and the regional Fox networks left after seeing what the conference had become after realignment. So start with 2016. UTEP's been on one of the Conference USA TV partners. That's, of course, not counting ESPN Plus, where there really is no like baseline determination to get on ESPN Plus. That's like where the leftover games are. They've only been on TV 9 times since 2016. And of those appearances, 4 were on BN Sports. Shout out to James, who criticized BN Sports a little bit yesterday, or not yesterday, in our last podcast. 2 were on the Old American Sports Network, which was the prior network to Stadium now, which was, American Sports Network syndicated, didn't have its own channel. 1 appearance is on ESPN, a 2017 Friday night clash against Arizona at the Sun Bowl. And they lost that one 63-16. Rich Rod did some running up the score in that one, and as Rich Rod would do. And 1 appearance on Stadium in 2017, and 1 on NFL Network last year. So, UTEP, they haven't. People know that it's just not in a good state as a program. So they're not going to be taking up the Conference USA's TV slots as well. So say if they were to get a deal with Stadium to, I guess, distribute their games across networks of stations, or ESPN Plus to put their games on that paid wall, I don't see any difference really distribution wise.
So if they end up going to any other conference or doing anything, I guess, that moves them out of, let's say they go out of FBS independent, and let's say, I guess, what are the implications? What I'm trying to say is, what are the implications of moving anywhere? What would the implications be on them hosting the Sun Bowl? Is that independent of anything their program does? I don't know how that works.
No, it's totally independent. But you bring up other moves, and something that they could do is, in the long term, is wait for the WAC, like New Mexico State's doing right now, where they said their intention is to continue to be independent and not drop down to FCS and play with the WAC, but to wait for them to come up as an FBS conference. And that's something that UTEP could do, as they have a travel partner already. And that's going to be a largely Texas-based football conference once it does come up to FBS.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. If WAC goes FBS, there's really, I could see no reason. And especially if they have a bid, it seems like they pretty much have a bid, given geography, given their strength relative to the other programs, like I don't know why they wouldn't be able to join it and stay in FBS. Getting into a conference, I think, would be just a huge bump in the right direction. Like I think we talked about it last time, and it's like the pros of being in a conference just so heavily often outweigh the cons of being independent. And so it probably just makes the most sense. So what's the timeline on the WAC again?
Right now, it's like not really determined. They want to say in the next like 3-4-ish years, but it's still a waiting game in general.
Yeah, I feel like 3 years though, in the grand scheme of things, because they'll probably end up being in that, at least like 20, 25, 30 years, Like that's probably nothing in the grand scheme of things. And at this moment, they're already pretty much if they're able to kind of survive at the level they're at right now, there's really no reason to believe they wouldn't be able to do it another few years,
Yeah, I mean, I will say though, like from a UTEP's perspective compared to New Mexico State, it's a big gamble for them to leave Conference USA and establish Group of Five conference, despite its the turbulence it's faced in the past years with the rotating members. I don't see a world where Conference USA doesn't exist anymore. And then compared to New Mexico State, who is already an independent with nothing to lose in joining a conference. So I will say relatively, I mean, it's a big gamble, but I mean, it makes a lot of sense geographically. Yeah, I think that's what the long game should be.
Honestly, it's interesting. It's like if you think about it, the WAC, when it comes to the FBS level, it may automatically just get more credibility than, Conference USA or even, no, I guess probably not MAC, but probably Conference USA. It has a competing chance to already be a more recognized brand. I mean, it probably has a chance to be a more recognized brand than a lot of Group of Five, really. But just strength wise, they'll probably already just be better than or able to compete with at least Conference USA. But
yeah, I mean, because I mean, if you look at what they did during expansion, Conference USA, and adding a lot of startups, UTSA, who's really on the rise, I think. But others programs like Norfolk, or not Norfolk State, but Old Dominion, who's also in Norfolk, who have had limited success. And I mean, really, what's to say that the WAC isn't on the same level with established Southland teams like Stephen F. Austin, Sam Houston State, who's made the title game, I believe, earlier in the 2010s. I mean, you have a totally great point there about the WAC's pedigree.
Yeah, I mean, people know the WAC. Like it comes back, it'll probably be like, honestly, given this may just be a pure objectification of everybody nowadays, but it seems like everyone wants to reminisce on like vintage stuff. It's like WAC. That's key vintage right there. There's gonna be some. I'm sure you already have some, and I'm sure there will be some more WAC relics dug out of the ashes. People wearing that stuff, repping that. They'll be like, look at this WAC windbreaker I have from like the 90s. Like just. And it's like bright purple. It's got like that logo. It's like got the design with like the plastic cups. At like a hospital or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's just that kind of thing. That's what that's what the WAC is getting. People are gonna love the WAC. They're gonna embrace it. They're gonna look at Conference USA and they're gonna feel like, oh,
Yeah, I mean, silly me. Like, I didn't wear a WAC hat for this one. I mean, I'm wearing this Baltimore Orioles hat. I was inspired by the episode of Seinfeld, where Elaine is at the Yankees game. She gets kicked out for Seinfeld fans out there. But yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. Like, I guess real into the vintage, and especially like when you think of the WAC and I mean, who it's at, because anytime you see on the WAC's page, they do their like WAC in the day feature on Twitter, and they always like reminisce and like, oh, 1991, Ty Detmer won the or 1990, excuse me, Ty Detmer won the Heisman. In 1984, BYU won the national title. So the WAC is very proud of their history for sure.
Oh wait, is there a possibility we get a BYU to the WAC?
No. I'm just gonna say no.
No chance.
No chance, because like look at BYU's schedule. I mean, BYU isn't loving independence from like people I've heard, but it's not a bad lot. Like schedule wise, that's a total downgrade for them to go from scheduling like 6 Power 5 teams a year. Like they had a monumental schedule before the pandemic this year. I'm not sure who they had. I mean, I forget like off the top of my head who they had, but they had a lot of Power 5 teams. I think their first 4 Power 5 games.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Well, then why don't they just join a conference? Like what is stopping them? I guess it's a little bit off topic now, but
I mean, it's just like what type of conference do you want to be in? Like, do you want to be in the Mountain West? Like BYU recognize the power of their brand, and they want to be with say like the Texases in the Big 12, Oklahoma's in the Pac-12. What's stopping them from having as big a brand as USC in that conference, and really like bringing in money to that conference and just adding to that conference's profile?
Yeah, I mean, I guess could they, if they were to, let's say, like, let's revisit, I guess, Boise State. Let's say Boise State makes a jump to, I don't know, back Big 12, Pac-12, something, right? And then let's say Mountain West needs another strong cornerstone brand. Then could we see BYU come in? Maybe they get little incentives their way.
So I mean, with that, like when it was rumored that Gonzaga was gonna go to the Mountain West, when that was a rumor, there was also the rumor that BYU would be on the way as well because the West Coast Conference wouldn't be much of a conference without BYU or without Gonzaga. So I mean, there's a rumor that say BYU does pack their bags and come back to the Mountain West store, but pride ultimately kind of shut those rumors down. So I just think it's a pride thing. I think an institution with as much standing as BYU would not want to rejoin and admit they were wrong to the Mountain West, especially with the state of the Mountain West. Like a lot of Boise State fans, like in that comment, that Boise State fan said that they hated the state of the Mountain West and that the only brands there was Boise State and on a much less degree, San Diego State. So I mean BYU, I don't think they want any piece of that. I think they're fine just scheduling their 6 Power 5 teams a year with a shot at the New Year's Six, maybe in the playoff if things break right.
I guess it was decreed by John Smith after all. Thou shalt not go forth and join the Mountain West. But
I'm not exactly sure that that's what the decree was. I mean, I'll leave that up to the viewers and listeners for further review. But I guess a little segue to our next, speaking of John Smith and I guess Christendom, you have Liberty, who on a much lesser note, you had the Atlantic Sun create its own football conference or at least announce intentions to create their own conference with 6 schools. And the schools are Eastern Kentucky, Central Arkansas, Kennesaw State, North Alabama, and Jacksonville State, and one school to be named later. But they announced intentions as well to go to the FBS level. And I think it's a lot less likely than the WAC, but it's still a possibility, which opens the door for Liberty, who is an all-sports member of the Atlantic Sun and, of course, an independent. So I want to know your thoughts on Liberty potentially joining the Atlantic Sun as a conference.
So would that push the FCS? Is that?
It would be like the same thing as the WAC, where like you have New Mexico State waiting for the WAC to come up. You'd have Liberty potentially waiting for the Atlantic Sun to come up.
Gotcha. As long as they come FBS, I'd see no reason not to. Like Liberty, versus BYU, right? It's like BYU gets these Power 5 games. They hit all these nice shots. Liberty's in more of a same boat as New Mexico State, where it's like maybe you get a couple paycheck games at the beginning of the year, but there's no real like competitiveness to your schedule. There's no real hope for you to do anything big. I mean, save for this last year with Hugh Freeze, but obviously he's gone. I mean, he's going to be gone, at least if he's, if not this year, in the next couple of years. But so you lose a guy like that, it's like, what are you going to do? Like, you need some kind of structure to fall back into. Like, you need, I think it makes, they're going to need a conference. It's like, if you're not a brand, like if you're not a Notre Dame, like BYU is probably not a Notre Dame. And even there, having they're recently, decent go of it, but it's like, if you're not them and no one's close to their level after that, it's like such a cheap drop off of independence. It's like, you need a conference end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, I do agree to an extent. I think schools like, BYU, of course, and Notre Dame, Army to, I guess to the same level can survive without a conference. It just depends what their aspirations are.
No bias there, huh?
No bias. I mean, I like independence, but, part of me inside, which we might discuss later on, part of me wants to join the MAC, as James has said last podcast. And it makes a lot of sense just to have access to the New Year's Six because we're scheduling like 2 Power 5 games a year. It's not like we lose much. But I mean, Liberty, though, I think I agree. Like Liberty could use running a conference, and the Atlantic Sun, it's like a marriage. Like the Atlantic Sun could use Liberty's brand power, especially after the year they had this year, to boost it once it becomes the FBS conference. And it's not like Liberty's losing much, aside from like the occasional Power 5 game. They have 2 next year. They had 3 this year. They have 2 next year. Syracuse and sorry, I can't even look. I'm looking at this. Can't even find the second. Oh, Ole Miss. They're playing Hugh Freeze. They're playing the Hugh Freeze Bowl next year or this season in 2021. The year after that, they got 3. So I mean, you play like a 6-game conference schedule, or it would be 6. They have 7. You play a 6-game conference schedule. There's plenty of room for the Power 5 games. and games with like the best teams in the group of 5. Like next year they got UAB defending, or 2021 they got the UAB defending Conference USA champion Louisiana on November 20th, which should be a really good game, a spicy game, no pun intended, for the Raging Cajuns. But yeah, like I think I see nothing but benefits there for Liberty joining the conference. But Liberty, I think it's the type of institution to say they're bigger than a conference like the ASun, even though all of its other sports are in the ASun.
I just still can't get over the idea that if another conference joins the FBS level, we're gonna have to stop saying group of 5. We're gonna have to say what, group of 6? Are we gonna push American Power 6, and then we have group of 6 maybe? Group of 7 potentially? I mean, that just sounds weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, you can always use the ridiculous 7, or is it the ridiculous 6 or the
ridiculous 6? Yeah,
ridiculous 6. You can do the ridiculous 6. The magnificent 7 is the classic Western, or the magnificent 7 too. But yeah, no, like it's kind of strange. I mean, I feel like everyone kind of wants in now. Not really everyone, but the pool is expanding in a way that I don't think we've ever seen in like a very long time. It's just always gradual whenever teams go up from FCS to FBS.
You know anything about like the logistics of that? Like, how does a conference just join the FBS level? Like, how does that work?
I'm totally not sure about that, but in a piece of literature that I've read numerous times, the Idaho Consultants Report, when they're considering what to do after the Sun Belt kicked them out, they did mention the Western Athletic Conference as a possibility, and they mentioned that there is like some like bylaw that a conference that was previously considered an FBS conference could move up as a whole conference into FBS. Now with the Atlantic Sun, or the ASun as they're branded, I keep calling the Atlantic Sun like an old head, but as the ASun, like they've never been an FBS conference, so I'm not sure what the logistics between that is. But I mean, if the people in their leadership say it's possible, I'm not going to question them, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's probably definitely a reality. It's just I have no idea how the intricacies of conference, not I guess conference realignment, like conference, like conferences realignment. You know what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's strange for sure. And looking at my notes, I forgot to mention something with the UTEP earlier. I know we're kind of backtracking here, but again, I think the biggest indictment for a team like UTEP going independent is their television exposure this year, in a year where a lot of TV slots got shuffled around, a lot of openings happened for other schools. And I know UTEP only played 8 games and went 3-5 this year, but out of all their games, only 2 were broadcast on linear TV, one of the ESPNs. That was their September 26th game September 26th game at ULM, which they won easily, 30-26. I think Gavin Hardison, their quarterback, was one of the highest ranked players EPA-wise. Shout out to our friend Connor McAnalytics. But and then after that, 2 weeks later, UTEP at Louisiana Tech was on ESPN too. But I think the biggest, I guess, show of the lack of television power that UTEP had was on Labor Day weekend, September 5th, when there was like less than 10 games on the slate, and UTEP got pushed back to ESPN3. I mean, I know they were playing like Stephen F. Austin, but they couldn't carve out a late night TV slot, being in the Mountain Time Zone. I mean, that just shows that, UTEP, they just, I guess there really isn't a difference like in terms of like them being independent, being Conference USA, because the TV exposure is the same. It's not like the Conference USA TV contract's doing them any good. Sorry to backtrack a bit. I just noticed that on my notes.
No, you're good. And in terms of Connor, we're just gonna throw out there, never kick field goals.
Yeah, that's his line. He's Twitter famous for that. I love it.
But yeah, no, I think you make a good point on UTEP, and it makes sense. I don't have much to add on to that.
Yeah, I will say, well, I guess I will say that I guess as it continued to grow as a program, because we just saw this one year, like with Malik Willis showing out, them being coastal in the Cure Bowl, even though like many of the independents in FBS this year, their schedule was like laughable at times, but they really showed that they were for real in the Cure Bowl. And of course, beating Virginia Tech to a lesser degree, even though they went 5-5 or 5-6. Yeah, like if they continue their trajectory and continue to beat teams that they should beat and continue to be in the rankings, who knows that they might want to be an independent instead of being an ASun school. I mean, do you see that as like feasible if they think they're bigger than the conference?
I mean, it would be, in my opinion, it would be kind of like a shot in the dark, because it's like you put all the pressure on yourself every year, and it's like the fact of the matter is, unless you're Alabama, you just can't count on the fact that you're going to be good every year. You know,
Yeah.
think about who are some competitive teams this year, right? It's like the big names, Florida, Texas A&M, but the last few years, where were they? You know, they were struggling too. So it's like, especially, and if you considering we're not even talking about, you know, a program that's as big as those two, you know, like a conference is at the very worst a safety net for you to fall back on, because call it 2-3 years, you fall into a rut there, you know, you're not performing, so you don't get ranked. And think about it from this way too. Really, the only reason they were kind of notable this year is because they went undefeated, right? And we all know how difficult it is to go undefeated in college football. Like, to be able to count on yourself to do that year after year to stay relevant just doesn't seem reasonable to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, they did have one loss. They had a field goal blocked with, I guess, a minute left against NC State. So that's an NC State team that was, wrongfully or not, ranked in the bottom of the CFP rankings. I mean, a good school. But I mean, I do agree, and I think with that point you make, like, look at UCF. I didn't think I'd see UCF having a 4-loss season, I guess, in the next like 10 years, and here they are going 6-4, getting waxed by BYU in the bowl game, in a game that people looked at and was like, this is going to be one of the best, if not the best bowl of the bowl season, except they lose 49-23 in a game that wasn't even that close. So it's like, I mean, I totally agree. Like, it's hard. I mean, and I think it's hard to sustain consistency in the group of five, because you have the coaching turnaround and just whatnot. I mean, because it's hard to recruit there, as always. I mean,
yeah, especially if you're not out of Myrtle Beach.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to see what Coastal does in the next few years. I'm not doubting that they're going to stay good. But I mean, I guess Myrtle Beach is a huge destination. I've never been. I might visit once I head to Georgia for training over the summer. Head to North Georgia, but we'll see. But I mean, I'm just not really sure. I'm not really sold on Myrtle Beach just yet as a huge recruiting spot.
Yeah. You know, it's funny people say that so much, but it's like, if that was true, then wouldn't USC be the best team every year, you know? Or Hawaii,
Yeah.
I guess, wouldn't Hawaii be the best team every year?
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I feel like it's kind of a cop out, I guess.
end of the day, though, it's just hard to win in college football. And I think having a conference makes it a little bit easier to maintain yourself when you're not having your best year.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it keeps the fans interested, honestly, because it's hard. Like, you look at a program like UMass, UConn, we haven't seen yet whether fan interest will go up or down. It's pretty low right now. I mean, even though being in the best of 5 league, you know, you're getting blown out every week. It's not fun for the fans. We'll see how fun it is. I mean, because they're getting some Power 5 teams to come to Storrs, Connecticut, or to Hartford, you know. And also they'll be getting a steady dose of Army, as our assistant AD had said. We're getting a steady dose of UMass and UConn, and that's just like exhibit A of why it's hard to maintain interest. Because I mean, Army's got, like, they're a national brand. They'll always have, you know, a good amount of fans, a good set of fans, but it's just hard, you know, to keep fan bases interested when you're playing UMass, UConn every single year, and who else? It's just tougher to fill up an independent schedule.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah, well, I mean, this one was a bit shorter. I mean, not really much to speak of on this front, but just something to look in the future for the Western Athletic Conference, the Southland, Conference USA, as they continue their supposed downslide as a conference. Hopefully things get better for them, but that's just a storyline to see. I mean, potentially even, I guess we didn't mention this point, what if Conference USA adds Liberty and overlooks all the things going for Liberty as an institution, which I don't see happening, but Jerry Falwell Jr. got fired from his position as president. Things should be getting less controversial there at Liberty. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, that would be best case scenario, really. Conference USA, I mean, I guess in the grand scheme of things, maybe not the best conference, but it'd definitely be a step in the right direction.
I think arguably the best destination is probably the Sun Belt, but I don't think the Sun Belt's letting anyone in. I think they have a great set of schools that they're really sticking to, like nice at 10.
Yeah, and maybe unless they give a little only Mexico State, Idaho reinstatement, but
yeah, I think that ship sailed. What I'd like to see, I guess, in terms of Sun Belt expansion, maybe they add James Madison from FCS, the FCS Power. and then along with James Madison, they get Liberty as a travel partner, and totally blow Conference USA out of the water.
That would be really interesting. That's a good idea. You should write an article about that one. That's a good idea.
Maybe. I mean, nothing's happening. It gets old writing Conference USA or realignment articles saying like, what if this happens when it's clearly not going to happen? But if that happens, just a hot take, I'd put that league on par with the American Conference. I really would.
I mean, honestly, right now, if Conference USA, or I'm sorry, if the Sun Belt does what they did last year again, I think they might already be on par.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like you look top to bottom at the American. There's like a couple schools at the top, like the mid-tier programs, like they don't really like catch your eye. Like you look at the Sun Belt, they have like middle tier programs that are like solid year in year out, like Georgia Southern. They have probably one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the country because he's constantly getting overshadowed by the other teams in the league and other quarterbacks in the league. Shai Werts is Georgia Southern's quarterback name. If you haven't seen him, look him up. But that just shows like the depth of the league where there's like solid programs. Even Louisiana's always been a solid program, but I mean, who could have seen what happened this year with them? Even the year before in 2019 when they went 10-2 in the regular season and went to the Sun Belt title game, like it was a quiet 10-2 because App State was constantly in the rankings.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
So again, as always, continue to look up your chat boards, your message boards for conference realignment rumors. But until
I think before we sign off real quick, give a little shout out to yourself right here. I noticed a little teal jersey back there. So a little Anaheim Ducks jersey. Shout out to Drip at what drip.of.soda. Is that it?
At Drip of Soda, no dots.
No dots.
No dots, no punctuation. Check it out. I'll put it in the description. But I put out some nice fits from time to time.
A little retro, a little vintage stuff you might not see always. A little dose of history too.
It's a good. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna learn something. You're gonna learn something if you look at my page. That's for sure. But
IG though, just to be clear.
Yeah, Instagram. Yep, Instagram. But until next time, I'll comment aside, Marshall, if you have anything else to say. All right. Until next time, peace, love, and soul, everyone, and stay frosty.